Yes, thank you for having me on the show, and congratulations to you all out there in Aldabra Atoll. Just amazing that you've put this together. You know, I have in my lifetime, I'm from Fiji, seen pristine atolls and then see them atrophy over the decades with the plague of plastic that we've set upon the ocean.
It isn't just plastic, of course, is it? It is global warming too. Certainly the Seychelles is amongst those places that have been really hit hard. And I know in the 2016 coral mass bleaching episode that it was very difficult, that the water temperature that we see behind us, that shouldn't really go above 29 degrees for coral, reached 30 degrees over 4 consecutive months, sometimes spiking at 31 degrees. So coral bleaching is here on the Granitic Islands, a little bit here in Aldabra too. How important is it, do you think, that the world wakes up to the difficulty of climate change and what that is doing to the oceans?
Well, it's absolutely existential for us. If we even care a little bit about the well-being of our children and grandchildren, this is probably the most important thing facing humanity at the moment, climate change and ocean change. So there's no getting away from that, unfortunately. The ocean is in deep trouble. You've pretty succinctly put it there in distinguishing between climate change and things like pollution and fishing. I see it as two areas. One is imminently fixable, which is the fishing and the pollution side. That is just man management, getting the laws in place and doing the business. And I firmly believe we can do that over the next decade, clean up the ocean and sensibly manage our fish stocks and get into sustainable aquaculture and all the rest. But there is a much more difficult challenge that we're facing, which is the climate change challenge. And that is where we have to address our GHG emissions with what we're putting into the atmosphere, because that is what's really damaging ocean's health. You know, you're looking at things like ocean acidification, deoxygenation, ocean warming, and as you say, the effects of all that, such as you know, coral die-off and rising sea levels.
Yes, and in fact, I'm walking as you're talking towards the Ocean Zephyr, which is the mothership for the scientists of the Nekton mission who we've joined with. And certainly when I've been down in the submersibles, we've been taking some of those readings that you mentioned there, the salinity readings, the acidity readings. And it's really important, isn't it, to say to people that actually the extra carbon dioxide we're putting into the atmosphere is being absorbed in there. And it can't keep doing it. Already, we heard from the principal scientist, she saw in the Antarctica evidence of shells melting because of acid, the acid in the water, the carbolic acid in the water. So really, change is already happening, isn't it?
Absolutely right. And, you know, the continuing acidification of the ocean is purely related to the CO2 levels in the atmosphere. So, yeah, that is going to make life, things very difficult for life in the ocean. You know, you think of any calcium carbonate-based life form like shellfish or vertebrates. You know, how are they going to form their skeletons if they're being, if this rising acidification is being applied to them? So that's that. But the ocean warming side is so tragic, you know, and that's just obviously as the atmosphere warms with our greenhouse gas emissions, the ocean warms as well, because the ocean takes most of that ocean, of our warmth that we're producing is absorbed in the ocean. So in the past we've thought the ocean's big enough to take it, but now we realize it's not, and we're seeing the effects. For one thing, sea level rise, you know, as H2O expands, there's only one way to go up, which is, you know, only one way to go, which is up. You know, think of the ocean as a bathtub. There's only one ocean. So as you expand, up go the levels. And think of the, not just the Pacific Islands and the atolls like Aldabra, which will go underwater, but think of those coastal areas like Bangladesh, you know, river deltas, which support tens of millions of people all going underwater. Where are the people going to go? So you've also got, with ocean warming, the tragedy of coral reefs. The thought that by the end of this century, we could be in a position where there are no longer any coral reefs. For me, coming from Fiji, brought up on a coral coast, this is tragic beyond belief. And you know, it's akin to saying there'll be no more forests on land. The coral reefs are the bunkers of biodiversity for the oceans. And to take them out of the picture, you know, could well be the taking out of the ocean ecosystem, and therefore the taking out of our global ecosystem, and therefore us.
Yes, and indeed people say, don't they, that they are less than 1% of the landmass, but 25% of the diversity. While you're talking, we're right by ancient coral here. It's about 125,000 years old, probably lifted up as sea levels drop at some time in its history. There are whole corals here, actually, some mushroom coral here, a flat one, but it just shows you that this is what, the living form of this is what needs to be protected now to keep the diversity that you're talking about. And certainly some of those governments that you mentioned did head to the G7 to try and make their case. Governments like that here in the Seychelles or the Maldives, to make the point you're making. You must feel, as UN Special Envoy, that you want to bang heads against a wall about this. You must be so frustrated about it.
Yeah, well, I'm in a different country every week talking to governments and conferences about the urgency of the situation, the predicament that humanity is in. But the fact that we have a plan, and the plan, of course, is the Paris Climate Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals, in the case of the oceans, SDG 14. So we have to be faithful to the implementation of that plan. And, you know, as you know, there are some that are sort of in denial, and that just means that those of us that know the truth have to carry a heavier burden and push on harder. And when I say know the truth, we get the truth from the very best of our scientists who've been assembled in the IPCC and put out reports from time to time. And these scientists are not people from another planet, you know. They're getting their information from the weather offices of every country on the globe, and they collect those daily at the World Meteorological Organization in Geneva. And this is the truth. You know, there's no avoiding the truth. So the rest is obfuscation. The truth is there.